Okay, so we were talking yesterday about renouncing the 5 desires, meaning, um, the attachment to visible form, the attachment to nice sounds, the attachment to nice smells, to nice tastes, to nice touches. So it's really the attachment to all these things that is to be renounced. The objects themselves are just what they are, yeah, but it's because we have attachment or aversion for them that then our mind gets confused and tied up. Okay? So, one good method is when we're quite attached to someone or something, and our mind just gets out of control with attachment. And then, of course, when things don't happen the way we want, then our mind gets out of control with anger. Then one way to work with that is to keep some distance from whoever it is we're attached to or whatever object it is we're attached to. Not because the object is bad, but because our mind gets uncontrolled in relationship to it. Okay? So it's like if you weigh 300 pounds and you're trying to lose weight, don't go to the ice cream parlor, because you put yourself with that object and the attachment, the desire comes up very strongly, very difficult to control. If you don't go to the ice cream parlor and you stay away from it, then there's some space in your mind, and then you can use that space to do meditation on the defects of attachment, the defects of, obsession with sense objects, impermanence, and so on. And in that way, you can settle the mind down and develop some detachment in your own mind. Okay? So you separate yourself, not to escape, but to have more space in your mind to apply the counter forces to the attachment or to the anger, whatever it is that your mind is so wrapped up with. Okay? But it's not the object itself or the other person themselves that's bad. It's the way we relate to them, and so we need to work on our own mind. Okay. Okay, so we talked about how they're like carrion and so forth. Yeah. Okay. So then there was a story. Let's see. We're going to skip that story. Okay. So now we go on to Nagarjuna is going to go specifically into attachment to each kind of sense object. So he starts out with visible forms. Whenever they talk about sense objects or sense faculties or sense consciousnesses, they always start with the eye and visible forms, then the ear, the nose, the mouth, tactile, and then the mind. So it always goes in that order, because I think that's, sights are maybe the thing that triggers us the most, and sounds a close second. Yeah. Smells, maybe not so much, although they could. Taste, we get a lot of attachment to, but, I don't think we go totally crazy. But touch, we go crazy. Yeah. So it kind of starts out with the strong ones, kind of goes a little bit down, and then, the objects of touch very strongly we react to. And then the mental faculty, which is the one that generates all the afflictions. The actual sense consciousnesses themselves just perceive the raw data of the sense object. It's the mental consciousness that arises after these sense consciousnesses that in which that has the afflictions. Okay. So renunciation of visible forms. Okay. As for the five desires, they refer to pleasing visible forms, sounds, smells, tastes, and touchables. All who desire to seek concentration absorption should reject them. Okay, so rejecting these desires. So then the calamitous nature of attachment to pleasing forms. Calamitous nature? That sounds heavy. What's wrong with looking at beautiful things? Our mind says, right? Yeah. What's wrong with it? Okay. So how does one renounce these pleasing visible forms? One contemplates the calamity inherent in the pursuit of visible forms. If a person becomes attached to such visible forms, the fire of all the fetters blazes up furiously, burning and injuring this person. So when we, are very attached to visible forms, the term itself sounds very innocuous. We think like visible form, like, this. I'm not going to get it very attached to that, It's not going to make any big deal. So what's this thing about visible forms? Okay. Think of the face of somebody that you care deeply about. Some attachment arise there? Yeah. Think about when you look at your bank account statement. Yeah. Or your investment account statement that's just gone boom. Yeah. Is there some emotional reaction to that? Okay. So visible forms, don't just think, well, I'm not attached to the color green, and I'm not going to get all, full of lust over this microphone thing. Yeah. But just watch how we relate to visible forms. It's very powerful. Okay. Okay, so there's some analogies here. This is just as when one uses fire to melt gold or silver, and just as when one brings hot honey to the boil. Although those substances still manifest their typical appearance and flavor, they sear the body with ruinously scorch the mouth. Then one is compelled to immediately cast them aside. If a person has developed a defiling attachment to marvelous visible forms and fine flavors, the circumstance is just the same. Would you come to the Abbey if instead of having the beautiful environment here, it was located in the middle of the inner city? With, boarded up buildings on either side and trash on the street and graffiti on the walls. Yeah, would you come? You say yes, I wonder. I wonder. Yeah. Okay, so, we want to see beautiful things, don't we? Yeah, when it's your day off, you don't want to see ugly things. Yeah. I mean, why on the weekend people hate so much cleaning their house and doing their laundry? Yeah. When you clean stuff, you make them beautiful again. But you have to see the dirt before. And people, really dislike that. I don't want to look at the laundry. I don't want to look at the dirty house or the dirty dishes. Yeah. I want to see everything neat and clean and pristine. Yeah. We have a lot of reaction to objects of sight, don't we? Yeah. Do you judge other people by what they look like? You bet we do. Yeah. We take one look at somebody and our mind, clicks off a whole bunch of opinions. You know, so many things we know about them just by the way they look. Is it fair? No. Do we keep doing it? Yes. Okay? So don't think we aren't attached to things. When your car gets a dent, yeah, do you have some reaction to that? Your new car, the brand new car? Oh, no? No, to the brand new car that you just drove away. Yeah? And then it gets a dent. If you don't have a reaction when your car gets a dent, why do you get so upset when your teenager puts a dent in it? Yeah? Okay. So the non-inherent existence of beauty and ugliness. Moreover, perceptions of beauty and ugliness are such that reside within the person, each of us. Visible forms themselves are unfixed in this regard. So the visible forms themselves are neither beautiful nor ugly. Yeah, the discriminations of attractive or unattractive comes from us, lies within us. How do we know this? Take, for instance, when one sees from afar a person for whom one has a lot of fondness. Okay? So there's somebody you really love, you really care about, you see them far away. One immediately brings forth thoughts of delight and fondness. Okay? If, on the other hand, one sees from afar a person who's your adversary, who you don't like and can't stand, one immediately generates hateful thoughts inclined towards inflicting injury. When one observes a person towards whom one's feelings are neutral, one experiences neither rage nor delight. Okay? Isn't that a good example of how much we react to visible forms? Yeah? Just think of, how strongly you haven't even talked to the person or anything, but you see somebody you like from a distance, the mind, one emotion comes in the mind. You see somebody else in the distance who you don't like, another emotion comes in the mind. Yeah, you see a stranger in the distance, another emotion comes in the mind. Yeah, and that's just reacting to the visual form of the person. And yet, look how strongly we react to those things. Yeah, if we weren't so reactive to visible forms, why do we go window shopping? Yeah, why do we like walking down streets, looking in all the windows? Oh, that's so nice. That's so nice. That's so nice. Yeah, and we get pleasure just from looking at all those things and kind of inside craving them, thinking, when will I have enough money to buy that? Yeah. Okay, so, for some people, what do you go window shopping for? Sports equipment. Yeah, look at those skis. Look at that backpack. Yeah, other people, it's tech stuff. Yeah, look at that computer screen. Yeah, look at that new tablet. For somebody else, it's animals. Oh, that kitty's so adorable. That puppy is so cute. All the time, attachment and reactions to physical forms. And those forms themselves have no inherent beauty or ugliness. It's our mind that, projects beauty or ugliness onto them. They've done studies where they've tested how attractive people find somebody else when they first meet them. When you first meet them, some people, they don't seem very physically attractive. But after you get to know them, then they seem much more physically attractive. Yeah, completely in the mind of the person who's observing. If one wishes to renounce this tendency to respond with either delight or rage, then one must get rid of the erroneous thoughts as well as the perceptions imputed on their corresponding forms, simultaneously relinquishing them both. So we want to get rid of not only the mind that thinks, oh, this is inherently existent, beautiful or ugly, or it is permanent, it has a true self, but then the projections of, oh, this is so gorgeous, I want it. Yeah. Or this is so ugly, I want to get away from it, I want to destroy it. Okay? So both the grasping an inherent existence as well as the inappropriate attention and the emotional reactions. So there's an analogy here. This is analogous to an instance wherein one exposed to molten metal which burns the body. If one wishes to get rid of that circumstance, it will not do to simply seek the rejection of the fire alone, while still retaining that molten metal. It is essential, then, that one should cast aside both the molten metal and the fire as well. Okay, so both the grasping at inherent existence as well as the projections of beauty or ugliness. Okay, so the negative effects of attachment to pleasing visible forms, yeah? And so one way to help us cut this attachment to pleasing visible forms is by seeing the disadvantages. For anything we have, any bad habit we have or anything we're attached to, to overcome it, one very good way to start is by thinking of the disadvantages. Okay, so the negative effect of attachment to pleasing visible forms is exemplified by the case of King Bimbisara, who on account of such visible forms personally went into an enemy country where he remained unaccompanied in the room of the courtesan Amrapali. So it doesn't say the rest of the story. But, the king is going unaccompanied in the enemy territory into a courtesan's room. Yeah? Okay. Bill Clinton follows Monica Lewinsky into the Oval Room. Yeah. So, this is the kind of thing. It leads us to craziness, to completely, throwing out our wisdom because we're attached to somebody's pleasing looks. Okay. Yeah, and then it gives another story about somebody who saw people they don't like and then went and cut off their arms and legs because they didn't like them. So again, this thing of, oh, there's somebody that's ugly who, I don't like, I have aversion for, then that gives me reason to harm them. Yeah. Okay. So that's talking about visible forms. He doesn't go into here. There's some other antidotes, to overcome this kind of attachment to visible forms. One is thinking about the impermanence. Okay, so whatever it is, and this actually works across the board for attachment to any of the sense objects. If we become aware of how transient it is, it arises and ceases, and doesn't last very long. Okay, then it becomes much easier to ask ourselves, well, if this thing, doesn't last so long, why am I clinging to it? Yeah, because whenever we cling to something, it's because we really want long-lasting pleasure from it. Yeah, whatever pleasure or happiness we get, we want it to last a long time. But if we really contemplate how things are arising and ceasing, yeah, then like what's there to be so attached to, because in the next moment it's already decaying. Some years ago, who was it? Was it you when we took? There's a teenage girl at the Abbey, and we were taking her into Coeur d'Alene, and we stopped at a park. So teenage girl. There were a bunch of boys playing football or basketball. So she's like, look at those guys. And and I said to her, what do you think they'll look like when they're 80 years old? And she gave me a look. Like, So I said, well, what you're goggling at now is just the cause for the 80-year-old one who you're not going to goggle at. Do you remember? She was not happy. Yeah. But this is what helps the mind, reduce the lust and the attachment for sense objects. Yeah, is to see what they're going to become. It's like getting flowers. When somebody gives you this beautiful bouquet, it's like they're so gorgeous. But, what you're seeing is simply the precursor of all the dead flowers, which aren't so beautiful. When you look at food, food, of course, there's the taste that we're attached to, but also how it looks. Yeah? So we look how it looks, but, food is just the precursor to poop. Yeah? So, yeah, it's the cause of poop, isn't it? So what are we so attached to? So, thinking about impermanence and transience is very good. It's like, how can I put all my eggs in the basket of something external to me that's impermanent, that's not going to remain long? If I put my eggs in that basket and think I'm going to be perpetually happy, I'm going to be disappointed. Okay? So of course, we still have friends and, and so on, and we still see beautiful things, but we can react to them with a little bit more balance instead of this kind of obsession and possessiveness and I've got to have it now kind of mind. Okay, then the nature of attachment to sounds and the liabilities of this. Why must one renounce sounds? It is the characteristic of sounds that they do not abide. Yeah. Sound is maybe what we can get more, the sense of its impermanence more easily. Yeah. Because forms don't seem to decay so much before our eyes. But a sound, we can hear it changing from moment to moment. Just even the sounds as you're hearing, the voice, it's changing all the time. Okay? So one hears sounds only momentarily, and then they immediately disappear. Because foolish people do not understand a sound's characteristic of being impermanent and disappearing, they erroneously develop fondness for and pleasure in sounds. They retain in their mind sounds which have already passed and then generate attachment to them. Okay, So we can start with music as an example. People can be very attached to music, right? We usually like the music of our generation, not the music of our parents' generation or our children's generation. But we get quite attached to music. We want to hear music all the time. Why, everywhere you go, do they have music playing? It's so difficult to find silence somewhere. Yeah, I went to a Buddhist conference in Indonesia, and the place where it was held, they played music all the time. And my room was right near the loudspeaker. Yeah. It was really awful. I mean, even at a Buddhist conference, to try and get silence was difficult. Yeah. We're quite attached to sounds. We want to hear, start out with music. We want to hear nice music, nice sounds. The attachment to music is one thing. And some people really have a lot of attachment to it. We have people coming here who, are interested in monastic life, and when they hear that we have a precept not to listen to music and not to sing, their first question is, what's wrong with it? And we have to say there's nothing wrong with it. But, when you sing and play music and dance for that reason, then when you sit down to meditate, all the melodies are going through your head. We all know that, don't we? Do you have music coming up in your meditation? Yeah. I have a friend who did a 3-year retreat, and she said, when in the 3-year retreat, everything comes up. And she said one day in the middle of her retreat, for who knows what reason, she was humming the ants go marching on and on. These things come up out of nowhere. Jingles, commercial jingles that we heard when we were kids. Yeah, I bet everybody knows the Mickey Mouse song. Yeah, so so these things come up in our meditation, and they don't go away. So they're quite disturbing. They take us away from our object of concentration. Okay, so sounds like music are one thing. What about the sound of somebody who you have a strong connection with? The sound of their voice. Yeah. When they say, I love you, you're wonderful, you're the best one. I'm never going to leave you. I'm always going to be there. Yeah, all the things. Yeah. All the lovely words that people say to us. You're so wonderful, you're so beautiful, you're everything I wanted, you're this, you're that. And we just sit there like a sponge and like, more, don't we? Yeah? We like ego-pleasing sounds. Yeah? So not necessarily even from a romantic partner, but, we want our parents' approval. When our parents say nice things about us, we just like lap it up, Or your kids, when your kids say nice things about you for once, then you just, and then you go home and you just play it over and over, don't you? Yeah. When your boss praises you, then again, and think about it again and again. And, so not only attachment to sweet voices and the content of what they say, but a lot of upset when the voice is not so sweet and the content is not so good. You idiot! I told you to do this and that. Why did I have you as a child? What did I do to deserve you? You know? You know, or your boss criticizing you, or a colleague pointing out your mistakes. Yeah? Or your child accusing you of being selfish and not letting them have what all the other kids have. Yeah? Even more than music, boy, the sound of voices, what people say to us, we have a lot of reaction towards that, don't we? Yeah. So are you seeing how when we have a lot of, attachment and aversion to sounds, or attachment and aversion to visual objects, how that interferes when we try and focus our mind one-pointedly on the object of meditation? Yeah. Have you noticed that in your own experience? How your mind wanders off. You're trying to be on the Buddha or on the breath. Then, kind of some nice opportunity, Oh, go to the beach. Yeah. Go trekking in Nepal. The visual form comes up. Or you start remembering what people said to you. Even what people said 10, 15, 20, 30 years ago. Yeah? And we replay it in our mind. And we have a lot of emotional reaction to it. Clutching on to the nice things people said, getting enraged at the bad things they said. Okay, so our minds don't have very much equanimity, do they? Yeah, we're really befuddled by sense objects. They often use the example of a donkey with a ring in its nose, and getting pulled by the rope. Now, if you've ever been to India and you've seen the donkeys there and how hard they work, somebody yanks them, and the ring in the nose pulls them in some direction. That's exactly how we are with sense objects. A beautiful thing or a beautiful sound, some praise, yeah, some criticism. So to develop some kind of equanimity, this is when we talk about detachment, that's what we're referring to. A mind that can just sit there and listen to whatever and not, get so emotional over all of it. Wouldn't it be nice?
Well, the problem is that with the kind words or unkind words, or maybe the music less, but mostly the words, is that we see they're wanting it to match our identity. It has something to do with our identity.
Yeah.
We're still relying on the outside.
Yeah. Relying on what other people say, how they respond to us, to figure out who we are. Yeah. Okay, so not much mental stability. We like to think of ourselves as stable people, don't we? When you look inside, are you stable? Do the people who you see every day, yeah, do they have to wonder every morning who they're going to meet that day? Yeah? There's some people, really, that it's like every day you see them, you're not quite sure because they're so moody due to attachment and aversion. It's like, I have no idea who this person is going to be today. Yeah? Then other people, much more, predictable. In a good way, not like, I know they're going to be in a foul mood again today. Not like that. But, people who, okay, I can relax a little bit more about them. I don't have to walk on eggshells. Yeah, because they're just, more balanced. Okay, so here's some stories that they tell about, these are kind of, they're ancient stories, but I'm sure you can make some modern examples of how you've gotten, pulled in this direction or that direction by sweet sounds. So there's some kind of, it's a spirit being called a Kanara that they have very beautiful voices, and yeah. So this is illustrated by the 500 rishis. A rishi is like, one of the ancient mendicants. Usually they're not Buddhist, but they're some kind of spiritual practitioner. So there are 500 of them who dwelt in the mountains. The Kanara maiden was bathing in a pool in the snow mountains. When they heard the sound of her singing, they immediately lost their concentration absorption. Yeah. Their minds became drunken, crazed, and so unrestrained that they were unable to control themselves. It is as if a great wind had begun to blow through the forest trees. When they heard this subtle and marvelous voice, so soft and pure, they thought indecent thoughts. Because of this, without their even being aware of it, their minds became deranged. Thus it is that one may lose one's meritorious qualities in the present life and even become bound in later lives to fall into wretched rebirths. So it's a funny story, but, yeah, do you know people who have just heard somebody's voice or even taken one look at them and become completely crazy, like, I've got to be with this person? Yeah. It could be somebody, a stalker, or it could be who knows what's going on. Yeah? Yeah. I mean, it's teenage hormones too, isn't it? Yeah? Teenagers, we were all kind of crazy as teenagers, weren't we? I was nuts. Yeah. Okay, sounds perceived by the wise. A person possessed of wisdom contemplates sounds and perceives that in every new thought moment they are produced and destroyed. They arise and they cease in every moment. That the prior and latter sounds are not mutually inclusive, and that they do not even extend to reach each other. If one is able to develop such an understanding, then one does not develop defiling attachments rooted in imputing meaning onto adjacent but unrelated sound vibrations. Okay. When we hear somebody's voice, and if they're saying, "Oh, you're fabulous, you're wonderful," yeah, we think that all of that is coming from them, and we feel just totally delighted. All that's happening is there's sound waves coming out from their larynx, these sound waves, and the sound waves are going here and hitting here, and then there's, some chemical electro things, and it goes to the brain. And then we give those sounds meaning. Yeah, we give those sounds meaning. Similarly, when somebody says some other sounds, "You idiot!" Yeah, and, a bunch of beep beep words, then, again, just sound waves, hits our hammer and stirrup, goes to the brain, then we give those sounds meaning. And then we react to the meaning that we have given to those inanimate sounds. True or not true? Yeah? It's just a sound. It's just a sound, that's all. But boy, do we get worked up over sounds. If one is able to develop such an understanding about sounds, then one does not develop defiling attachment, rooted in imputing meaning onto adjacent but unrelated sound vibrations. Okay? Whoever becomes like this is unable to become disoriented even by the music of the gods, how much less by the voices of human beings. All sorts of causes and conditions such as these serve to illustrate what is meant by renouncing the desire for sounds. So just think for a minute, what would it be like? So, you know, no matter what somebody said to you, your mind was just stable. What would that, imagine for a moment, somebody could come in here and swear at you and accuse you of false things, and your mind stays stable. Somebody else could come in here and tell you you were the most wonderful thing in the world, and your mind also stays stable. What do you think? Would that be nice? Or do you like the up and down, the excitement of, oh, they love me, oh, they hate me?
It seems like the sound there, though, is the meaning of the words. I mean, if I got a note that said you're a jerk, don't ever darken my door again,
Yeah.
I'd be just as upset, I think, as if the person said it in words. You know, so it seems like there is my fear of reputation and wanting to develop the truth or whatever.
You're right.
How you tell me or not.
Right.
I'm angry about it, or upset or threatening.
Yeah. Yeah. So we are reacting to the content of it, but the content is being imputed by our mind. The sounds are just sounds. That's the thing. If we can see them as just sounds and not impute, oh, that means I'm wonderful, oh, that means I'm disgusting. Yeah, and just, oh, you know, it's sound, it's information, that's it. Yeah? And not be so much like yo-yos. Yeah? Wouldn't that be nice? Uh-huh.
So it seems like this is where this could maybe give us a little breathing room or space to remember when people communicate in a harmful way, that they're speaking from their own pain.
Yeah? Mm-hmm.
Because very often people will speak in tones of voices that the meaning that I'm imputing is the meaning that they intend, right? They're intending a negative
Mm-hmm.
communication.
Okay. So you're saying, oh, what if the meaning we're imputing actually matches what their motivation is? The implication being, well, then isn't it justified to feel happy or miserable if I'm imputing the meaning that they're actually meaning? Again, why? Why? Somebody says you're wonderful, somebody says you're awful, and they really mean it? Why get so attached to one and so much aversion to the other?
Right, that's exactly what I'm saying. So this seems to be one tool, one way we can think about relinquishing our attachment to, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So like you said, if we are imputing it a meaning, you know, oh, they're saying this out of their own pain, but it's basically just words. Yeah. Just because they say that doesn't mean I am that. Yeah. Either on the good side or the bad side. We like to use it when people criticize us, but when people say nice, sweet things, oh yes, I am that. I'm imputing them the same meaning that they intend by their words. Yeah? So they intend to say that I'm really wonderful, and by gosh, I am. But you see, as soon as we get inflated with I'm wonderful due to attachment to somebody's words, we're setting ourselves up to be deflated when we hear the opposite words. Yeah, because we're continually relying on other people to tell us if we're good or bad. And that is a setup for difficulty because, if it's somebody like the Buddha, then, or the wise people, then their feedback is worthwhile to listen to. But for regular sentient beings whose minds are under the influence of obscurations, why believe everything they're saying? Hmm? Mm-hmm.
So as a layperson, when you speak of a balanced view, is there joy to be found in sense objects?
In samsara? It doesn't matter whether you're a layperson or a monastic. Yeah. You can have worldly happiness in samsara, but there's no ultimate happiness in samsara. And what we call worldly happiness is basically the diminishment of some kind of difficulty or some kind of suffering. Yeah. This is one of the drawbacks with samsara, why we want to get out of it. Okay? So the example they usually give is when you're sitting down, you get tired, you want to stand up. When you first stand up, oh, it feels so good. You call that pleasure because the pain of sitting down has stopped and the pain of standing up is small. But the longer you stand up, then it becomes a big pain and you want to sit down. So if standing up were inherently pleasurable in and of itself, once we stood up, we should be always happy. But the nature of that is still unsatisfactory because the longer we do it, then the more we get unhappy again. Okay? So any kind of samsaric pleasure you can think of, if we keep doing it, turns into pain. Yeah. I know that sounds rather strong, but think about it. Make some examples for yourself. See if there's anything that you can think of that you can continually do without stopping, without taking a break, and have it be continually pleasurable.
Could I just follow up 1 second?
Yeah.
In particular, I was thinking about cooking for you all.
Uh-huh.
And how to balance that such that there's joy in it.
Right.
And not room for, or to not help you create attachment.
Okay. So so is the attachment in terms of hearing people say, "Oh, that food was so wonderful"?
Not on my side, on your side.
Oh, so you're afraid of.
Cook pleasing things for you.
Uh-huh.
But at the same time, not make them so extravagant such that it becomes a hindrance for you all.
Yes. Thank you. I got to tell. Yeah. I became a dragon yesterday afternoon, breathing fire. I don't know about anybody else. But I got to tell you, we had one man come a few years ago, really out of such a good intention. Yeah, he was a French cook. And he made fantastic food, fantastic French cooking. The, yeah, for the people who could eat really rich food. But for the people at the Abbey who couldn't eat really rich food, it was quite difficult. Yeah. So he made even these French pastries. Do you remember that? I mean, he just exquisite stuff, but you can't eat it. At least I couldn't day after day. You could, yeah. But you're like this wide, you know. So, yeah. So, yeah, you want to make nice, pleasant food, you know, but without, so that people are just thinking about lunch during meditation session, okay?
But it's not Jay's responsibility to worry about how attached we get to his food. I mean,
Right.
making it out of love, that's good enough.
Right.
What we do with it is our issue.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, to me, it seems like with the sound part, it does ultimately come down to ego and our kind of, that's the root of the misinterpretation or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So that seems like the way to really solve the problem. But is the idea with recognizing this to help us with reducing that for concentration, that just by remembering the impermanence, we're kind of loosening our grip on the attachment?
Okay. So you're saying that it seems like the real way to get rid of the attachment and aversion is by eliminating the self-grasping, the ego grasping. That's for sure. And then, but that is more difficult to do to gain that realization, whereas the understanding of impermanence is easier. So that is a temporary measure that we use to reduce the attachment and aversion.
And then the other part, the flip side is, for me around this, is like not becoming, it's like we don't want to be attached to things, but we don't want to be withdrawn.
Yeah.
Right? And so can you talk a little bit more about what that middle road looks like of being able to kind of enjoy or like appreciate without attachment?
Yeah.
It's easy to go to the other extreme really fast.
Yeah, finding the middle way here between, indulgence and dislike is very difficult. So it's a thing of, the object is there, you enjoy. When it's finished, it's out of your mind. You're not bringing it to mind again, saying, oh, that was so wonderful, how can I get it again? Can I recreate it? It was just you were there. And I think it's also nice when we experience some kind of pleasure, you offer it to the Buddha. Yeah, that helps us not, it helps us to remember that this is only samsaric pleasure. It's not lasting pleasure. So, I experience this, I offer it to the Buddha. We offer the food before we eat. So, belongs to the Buddha, so I'm not going to get attached over to something that belongs to the Buddha. Okay? So that when we talk about detachment, some people think that detachment or unattachment means withdrawn. Yeah? Like I'm not attached. Go ahead. Do whatever you want. See if I care. That's not detachment. Okay? That's manipulation. If you're thinking of the context you've heard it before in, that are the same as the context I've heard it before in. But anyway, what we're talking here about is a balanced state of mind. It's there, fine. It's not there, also fine. Yeah? So your mind doesn't have so many ups and downs. There, good. Not there, good. Enjoy it, fine. Finished, fine. Yeah, not trying to recreate it, not daydreaming about it and reliving it, not planning on how to get it again. That makes some sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. And in terms of relationships with people, having some kind of equanimity among people, what that means is like an open-hearted concern for everybody, not a withdrawn indifference. Yeah, the withdrawn indifference is, again, it's apathy. That's also a defilement. Yeah. So it's an open-hearted concern, but, you don't have to rescue the people you're attached to, and you don't have to clobber and correct the people that you don't like. Okay? Difficult to come to that balancing point, but the more we can strive for that, then the more peaceful our mind becomes. Mm-hmm.
I read the story about Lama Yeshe when he first came to the West.
Mm-hmm.
People who were taking care of him knew that he loved cheese, and they bought a bunch of cheese for him and all of that, and he gave them heck. He said, "Hey, I didn't came to the West to have cheese. I came to the West to teach Dharma." In his heart it was the Dharma, and I could feel like myself like, oh yeah, oh cheese, chocolate cake, and his house was so good, the mind is, or I hear, oh Jay's coming to cook, all right, and then he's not coming, to being all disturbed, oh he's not coming, oh. So that kind of, can I be happy without having Jay cooking? What? Or having Jay cooking? It's just like,
Comfortable
that's feeling that you feel inside.
Yeah. And then just to realize that whatever pain or pleasure we have from his cooking doesn't last very long. I mean, next week, are we even going to remember what we ate over this weekend? Uh-huh.
When you were talking about sound earlier, I was thinking about two things. One is that sound, like attachment to sound, is the vibration of it, because there's a feeling, like say with music. So I was kind of thinking about how that vibration gives, like the body can feel good too. And it's also used, isn't it also used in the chanting that we do?
Mm-hmm.
But it's for different purposes. But the other thing that I was thinking about, and I think this is attachment, I was someplace where they play music everywhere, and they were playing this song, and my throat started, like I could feel like my throat was singing. I was reaching for the notes. I wasn't trying to sing it, but my throat, my body was reacting to it because I'd heard it before, and I was actually reaching, like the ups and downs, everything in my throat, and I was like, okay, so is that attachment? Is that
I can't say if that's attachment. That's for you to decide. But definitely, the vibration of sounds, just on a vibration level of music, does interact with our body, for sure. I mean, when you pull up to a stoplight and the guy next to you has the bass turned up, yeah. I mean, I don't know about you, but I can feel my whole body vibrating with it. Yeah. And similarly with the sound of mantras, it works on a vibrational level, also affecting the winds, the energy, the wind energies in our body. Yeah, but that's just an effect. Then we can react to that effect with attachment or aversion.